In today's lesson, we're going to talk about Ben Hogan and Ben Hogan's master move and how you can incorporate that into your own golf swing so that you can have that Hogan-like consistency.
If you don't mind, I'll hit a ball, and the first thing to watch is what starts first from the top of the swing.
Now, just a bit of housekeeping before we get started. If you like our channel, you like the content, and you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. It helps us to grow our community of golfers, and we love hearing from our community. If there's any lesson tips and the drills that you want to see to help you with your game, by all means, shoot us a message, send us a comment, and we'll be happy to include it in the series. So let's get into Mr. Ben Hogan. Ben Hogan is still considered to be the greatest ball striker of all time. His swing is still marveled and studied some 70 years later, and he's still considered to be the biomechanical model of the perfect swing. Now, Hogan, talked a lot about the master move of golf for him in terms of, using the hips and that positioning of the right arm, and he's got this very famous video clip of him demonstrating that and talking about the proper way to move into the golf ball. When he highlights how the average golfer swings from the top, throws the club out, as opposed to him and better players, they move from the ground up. And Mr. Hogan demonstrates that drill in this video.
Well, the most important thing in a golf swing to me is the movement of the lower body from the top of the swing. And if you don't mind, I'll demonstrate. First off, you start down below with your knees and your hips. At the top of the swing, you move the lower part of your body, not your shoulders, the lower part of your body, letting your arms and hands follow, bringing you into position to hit. But this is the first movement there. Then you release at the bottom. Most people do it entirely opposite. They rotate their shoulders first instead of their lower body. As a result, they come across the ball and hit the outside of the ball instead of the back of it.
So we see that drill in the video where Hogan is pumping the club down, gets the club back, and he's doing this, bringing the club down, using the lower body, using the hips. There's a lot of hip rotation going on when he's doing that. And then he goes through. Now, golfers over the years have kind of misinterpreted that. They've got the sequence of the hip turn incorrect, and it's caused them some struggles in terms of how they move. And we see this a lot with golfers when they first learn about, I've got to use my hips. Okay, so they get the club back and then they rotate into it. They just flash into it and everything is turning. Yeah, the hips are turning, but they're also turning with the upper body. So you end up kind of spinning out and swinging across it. So they haven't really solved any problem with that. And then the other thing we see with it too, where they fixate so much on using the hips, they got this action going on where they've got the club going from out over top like that again, similar action, they're not letting the arms drop down. So yeah, I'm turning, but it's also, where's the club going? It's going out across. And then the other thing we see with players too, when they're, dealing with that right arm position, we see that with all good players where that arm drops down into position. It was really evident in Hogan's golf swing in his transition where that right arm drops. And, we see a lot of forced positions there with golfers where they're kind of, they're doing this or they're kind of, doing that. And, they're doing all kinds of forced positions there to try to get that right arm into that position. And it doesn't work for them. They end up kind of hitting behind the ball or blocking it and all kinds of, weird shots happening. And what we need to do when we're thinking about this master move, yes, the hips do turn, but we have to understand the sequence of the turn. So if we notice in that video with Hogan, when he gets that club back, he starts swinging the club back, and as he's rising and getting the club almost finished going back, his pelvis is starting to go back toward the target. That famous recentering move he had. So it wasn't a quick turn of the hips. He was recentering the pelvis to start moving forward toward the golf ball, toward the target. So we see this pelvis shift and then a turn. And we see this with all good players to varying degrees. We see various amounts of pelvis shift to start the downswing, but they all have that pelvis shift to start the downswing. And what does that accomplish? Well, when I do that, when I'm doing that pelvis shift toward the target, I'm not turning out of the way, so the upper body stays closed. And the pelvis is still closed in that first part. Then the rotation happens, the hips start to go to square, the club drops down into that magical delivery position. Hogan talked about, once he got into that position, he wished he had 10,000 right hands just to come bang, driving through it. But that proper sequence sets you up for your upper body to hit. And if you notice with Hogan's swing, there was no hang on. Once he got here, he just hit it and released through, and he had that great arm extension going through and releasing that golf club. And the other thing to notice too about it when he was doing that, the butt of the club is going left. It's going around him. There's no hang on. There's no steering and holding it off or anything like that. Once he got into the delivery position, wham, he just hit through it. You don't have to worry about the path. Once you get into that delivery position here, how am I going to square it up? How am I going to hit it? I'm going to rotate out of the way. I'm just going to keep turning. Boom. You're going to strike that golf ball super solid. When I don't get into that position, your turn stalls out, right? It's difficult to rotate because you've got the club out here. It's tough to turn. You've got really no room. So it's important in that first move, that transition from backswing to through swing, it needs to happen a little bit earlier for the average golfer, and it has to be a pelvis shift where the pelvis stays closed, then the turn happens. The magic is in that first move where the pelvis stays closed, the upper body stays closed, the club drops, the right arm will drop in front of me, not behind me. It's not back here, pinned behind my hip or rib cage. It's in front of me here. It's right out through here. Wham, then I can hit through it solidly. I'm not trying to create lag. I'm not trying to hold it off or anything. Once it gets here, boom. You're gonna have that magical Hogan move to start down and that fantastic release to hit the golf ball. So how do I feel that? Well, the natural tendency is to do what? I want to turn out of the way super quick. And if you've got that programmed into your swing, it takes a little bit of work to change it. So I'm going to show you a couple really easy drills so that you can incorporate that Hogan master move into your golf swing to make it a lot easier for you. So the first one is I'm just going to take a rubber band, put it across my knees, and do some stretching with it so I can feel the action of the pelvis. So I've got the exercise band across my knees. Those are just those simple little exercise bands. They're not the really big ones. They're like 12, 14 inches sort of thing. And you buy a 3-pack of them for like 10, 12 bucks. But they're super versatile for golf. So I've got it across my knees. I'm going to go back to the top of my backswing. And the first move is I want to feel the stretch here. So I'm trying to stretch this knee away from that back knee. So I get this pelvis push. I'm pushing from here over to that lead side, so I get the separation in the knees. And you can see as I do that, well, the club starts to drop naturally. I'm not hanging on to it. I'm not trying to do this or leave it up there. I just, pelvis going back toward the target, so I'm getting this little bit of a pelvis shift. Typically it's 4 to 5 inches average for tour players, but we see different variations. Scotty Scheffler shifts his as much as 7 to 10 inches, and some are a little bit less, but we all see this pelvis shift to start the golf club. Hogan had that fantastic recentering, and that was his magic move. It wasn't so much the dropping of the arm, which is what people get hung up on. It was the recentering action and that shifting in the pelvis to start his downswing, well, which was happening long before he finished the backswing. So I'm set here to the top, and I'm going to stretch it and feel that. And then from there, I can turn. And you can see what happens when that band pulls me around, and boom, hips come firing through, right knee's gone forward, and bang, good solid contact. And I'm socked into my finished position here. So when I'm doing that, I'm also moving the knee this way, over toward the toe of the left foot, like that. So the pelvis is staying closed. And when the pelvis stays closed, the torso stays closed. So for those of you that continually struggle with the out-in pattern, this is key for you. This is going to help ingrain that. It's teaching you to use the lower body, your pelvis, to start the downswing. It helps keep your torso closed, helps you get into this magical delivery position. So once I get the club here, the upper body can just tear through it and hit it. And you get that maximum force and great natural compression for super solid contact. Up to the top, stretch, stretch, turn. So think of that hip rotation on the downswing. It's stretch, turn. It's a pelvis shift and then the turn, not this quick turn of the hips and the body. To the top, just feel it, feel it. I'm going to feel that stretch. Boom, right through. You'll feel this good dynamic action where here, good transition. I'm setting myself up. I'm here, slam, then right through it. Boom. That's the sequence of the hip action on the downswing. That's Hogan's magic move. Recentering and then rotation. Don't rotate too soon. Great way to work on that downswing. You get the nice dynamic action of the lower body and the club dropping naturally into that correct plane. And then the last practice drill I want to show you is that Hogan had a very famous stepping sequence when he was doing his practice swings where he step, turn, and I want to show you how you can use that to incorporate that and to help with your downswing. Incorporate more of that Hogan magic move into your golf swing. So with the stepping drill, what I want to do, rather than just kind of stepping out, directly toward the target, I want to do what? I want to step at an angle. So I'm going this way, this way. So this way I step actively onto that lead foot. I'm going to feel that pressure shift this way, boom, and then turn. Here, and then turn. Pelvis stays closed, club drops down, wham. And it's easier to turn because why? Well, I've put pressure early here into that lead foot and it's gone this way. Which way do I want to turn my hips? I want my hips to turn back this way, so I've got pressure out toward the front of the foot. Now I can push back to help with that hip turn. And look how my body rotates around naturally. I'm not forcing anything here. All I'm doing is here, back toward the heel. Look what happens to the pelvis. Wham, and then up into that finished position. So fantastic hitting dynamics. Boom. So I'm programming the pelvis to stay closed into that lead foot there, and then boom, rotate around. Fantastic practice drill again to help promote solid contact. For all of you that swing out in, well, that starts here because this isn't working properly. So I've stepped here, upper body's closed. Now I can rotate hard into it and the club's going to come through on that proper path. It's also good for people that struggle with the so-called early extension. Well, what's early extension? Well, hip thrusting without any turn. There's many good golfers that hip thrust, but they rotate and turn. It's a problem when you're not turning. So what this helps to deal with is I do that step, I'm forward here. As I turn, this left hip goes back and I'm rotating. No more early extension, you don't have to worry about it. You've got great hit sequence to strike the golf ball. So you can try it with the ball. I'll do a few without the ball first. Step and then turn, right? The step always happens before the turn. Get set here, position my feet, Bring the left foot in a bit. I'm going to step out and then turn. So again, I'm just going to get set. Okay, I'm going to feel where I am. I'm going to bring that foot in. I'm going to step and then turn. Don't rush. Take it easy with it. Do it methodically and slowly. Do lots of rehearsals around the ball. Then add the ball. And then get set up in your normal setup, no stepping. Feel that move and then rotate through. The more you can practice without the ball, the more rehearsals you're going to do, the easier it gets, right? You can change the rewiring without, as soon as the ball's in front of us, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to go back to our old patterns, right? That's why we do practice drills. Practice drills are like the physiotherapy. They let you rewire the circuits so you can actually make some changes in the golf swing. So review those, learn how you can incorporate that Hogan master move properly into your golf swing. We don't have to copy him exactly. That's not what it's about. It's about learning a little bit better pattern of motion that you can incorporate into your golf swing so that you can swing a little bit more consistently and have that Hogan-like consistency in your own ball striking. Barry from Over 50 Golf. Let's keep playing golf. Let's keep having some fun.